There is a fascinating discovery that has been drawing attention from researchers dedicated to the study of healthy aging. It didn't emerge from a cutting-edge laboratory. It wasn't produced by a controlled clinical trial with rigorous protocols and placebo groups. It emerged from something simpler and in a certain way more powerful than any formal study could produce alone. From directly observing people who had already been doing the right thing for longer than most of us have been alive. After studying more than 400 people over the age of 100, in different countries, different cultures, different socioeconomic contexts, different life stories, a pattern began to emerge with a consistency that was almost impossible to ignore. These people lived in different places, spoke different languages, had different routines, different beliefs, completely distinct life experiences. Some were from rural communities, others from urban environments. Some had access to abundant resources, others lived with very little. But many of them shared specific dietary habits that kept repeating with a frequency that couldn't be coincidence. And perhaps the most surprising thing of all is exactly this detail. The secret didn't appear to lie in genetics. There was no common genetic profile that explained why these specific people reached 100, 105, 110 years of age with mental clarity, functional mobility, and quality of life that put people decades younger to shame. What existed was something far more accessible, far more democratic, far more within reach of any person who decides to pay attention. It was patterns of choice, small dietary habits, repeated with a quiet consistency across decades, that seemed to create in the body, and especially in the brain, the conditions for healthy functioning to extend far beyond what most people consider possible. To understand why these patterns matter, it's first necessary to understand something about aging that most people have never heard explained clearly enough. Brain aging, the progressive decline in processing speed, memory capacity, clarity of thought. The speed at which information is retrieved isn't a process that happens suddenly. It is built over years, sometimes over decades, through the accumulation of small inflammatory processes that were never adequately resolved, through progressive oxidative stress that damaged neural membranes and synapses with a slowness that made the damage almost imperceptible at any specific moment, through gradually reduced cerebral circulation that diminished the supply of oxygen and nutrients to neural tissue, through accumulated nutritional deficiencies that compromised the production of the chemical messengers that sustain memory, attention, and reasoning. And here is the point that changes everything. If decline is built over time through small repeated choices, then it can, to a large extent, be prevented over time through small different choices. Specialists have been recognizing with increasing clarity that daily nutrition directly influences systemic inflammation, cerebral circulation, neuroprotection, energy, and cognitive aging. In other words, the body, and the brain specifically, responds silently to what it receives every single day for decades. Every meal is a signal sent to the system. Every food choice is an instruction, implicit, silent, cumulative, about the direction the body should follow. And the people who reached 100 with their minds intact appeared to have been sending, for decades, the right signals. Through 4 foods they never skipped. Nothing expensive, nothing extravagant, nothing requiring access to specialty stores or advanced nutritional knowledge. Just simple choices, made with a consistency that became almost invisible from being so routine. It was exactly from the observation of these centenarian patterns that researchers developed a new understanding of how daily nutrition shapes brain aging. You'll find it at the first link in the description. The first food was beans, or legumes in general, lentils, chickpeas, peas, depending on the region and culture of each centenarian. But the consumption pattern was remarkably consistent. Legumes appeared regularly in meals, not as an occasional side dish, but as a central and daily component of the diet. And here is why this matters specifically for the brain. The first mechanism is glycemic stabilization. The brain is the most glucose-dependent organ in the body, but it doesn't function well with glycemic instability. The sharp spikes and drops in blood sugar that characterize the modern diet rich in refined carbohydrates create in the brain a cycle of hyperstimulation followed by energy scarcity, manifesting as mental fog, difficulty concentrating, that mid-afternoon focus crash. Legumes have one of the lowest glycemic indexes among carbohydrate-rich foods. Their unique combination of complex carbohydrates, soluble fiber, protein, and fat creates a gradual absorption curve that provides the brain with a stable, prolonged energy supply, without the spikes and crashes that compromise cognitive function. The second mechanism is gut microbiota support. Legumes are extraordinarily rich in prebiotic fibers, substances that feed beneficial gut bacteria. And gut microbiota health is increasingly documented as a direct influencer of brain health through the gut-brain axis, through the production of neurotransmitters and metabolites that have access to the central nervous system, and through the modulation of systemic inflammation that affects neural tissue. The third mechanism is the supply of essential minerals for neural function, especially magnesium, iron, folate, and zinc, in forms the body recognizes and uses efficiently. The second food was extra virgin olive oil, not just any vegetable oil, not processed fat, but extra virgin olive oil, cold extracted with its characteristic color and its bioactive compound profile intact. And the reason this specific food appears so consistently in longevity and cognitive health research has to do with a set of mechanisms that nutritional science has documented with growing solidity. The most studied component is oleocanthal, a phenolic compound present exclusively in high-quality extra virgin olive oil that has demonstrated in studies the ability to inhibit COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes responsible for the production of inflammatory prostaglandins through a pharmacologically similar mechanism to ibuprofen. The critical difference: oleocanthal does this chronically and moderately, as part of a regular diet, without the gastrointestinal and cardiovascular side effects associated with prolonged use of pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories. And in the context of brain health, the chronic and consistent reduction of neuroinflammation is one of the most powerful factors for the preservation of cognitive function over time. The second relevant component is oleic acid, the monounsaturated fatty acid that represents the majority of olive oil's lipids. Oleic acid is incorporated into neural cell membranes, contributing to their fluidity and functional efficiency. And the Mediterranean diet, of which extra virgin olive oil is a central component, is the dietary intervention with the most accumulated evidence of cognitive protection in long-term population studies. The third component is polyphenols, especially oleuropein and hydroxytyrosol, that have demonstrated specific antioxidant and neuroprotective properties, including the ability to stimulate neuronal autophagy, the process by which neurons eliminate damaged proteins and metabolic waste. 1 to 2 tablespoons of quality extra virgin olive oil per day, used in ways that preserve its bioactive compounds, preferably cold or at low temperatures, is how this food appeared in the routines of the centenarians studied. The third food was dark, leafy green vegetables, kale, spinach, chard, arugula, and local equivalents from each culture. This pattern appears in virtually all studies on healthy longevity populations, and the mechanisms by which these vegetables specifically support brain health are multiple and well documented. The first component is folate. Folate, vitamin B9, is essential for the synthesis of SAMe, the primary methyl group donor for methylation reactions throughout the body. These reactions include the synthesis of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, the maintenance of the myelin sheath surrounding nerve fibers, and the regulation of homocysteine, whose elevated levels are strongly associated with cerebral vascular damage and accelerated cognitive decline. The second component is lutein. This carotenoid, present in notable concentrations in green leafy vegetables, was for a long time studied exclusively for its role in eye health. But more recent research identified that lutein accumulates selectively in the cerebral cortex and hippocampus. Neuroimaging studies showed positive correlations between serum lutein levels and the integrity of cerebral white matter, the communication structures that connect different regions of the brain and that are fundamental to processing speed and integrated cognitive function. The third component is glucosinolates, compounds that, when metabolized, produce isothiocyanates with specific neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory properties. Sulforaphane, derived from broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables, has been particularly studied for its ability to activate the NRF2 pathway, one of the body's primary antioxidant and anti-inflammatory defense systems. And the fourth component is simply nutritional density. Dark leafy green vegetables are, by weight, some of the most nutritionally dense foods available, providing vitamins K, C, E, iron, calcium, magnesium, and antioxidants in concentrations that few other foods reach. The fourth food was nuts and seeds, especially walnuts, chestnuts, and almonds. Not in large quantities, not as the main meal, but as a regular and consistent part of the daily dietary routine, a handful per day, consumed with the same naturalness with which one drinks water. Nuts concentrate a combination of compounds that align directly with the primary brain protection factors we've been discussing. The polyunsaturated fatty acids, especially the omega-3 in walnuts, are structural components of neural membranes. The vitamin E present in almonds and other nuts is a fat-soluble antioxidant that protects cell membranes from oxidative damage from within. The polyphenols in walnuts, especially, have demonstrated the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and exert direct anti-inflammatory effects on neural tissue. And the magnesium, present in significant concentrations in most nuts, participates in the regulation of NMDA receptors, GABA synthesis, sleep quality, and hundreds of other biochemical reactions with direct relevance to cognitive function. It's no coincidence that walnuts have the visual shape they do, resembling a brain. It's a mnemonic reminder for one of the foods with the highest density of neuroprotective compounds available in the human diet. If you want to start this process today, understanding how to incorporate these 4 foods strategically and consistently, and what researchers have isolated about the ideal combination, it's available at the first link in the description. As simple as it always should have been. But here is the aspect of this story that goes beyond nutrition. The real desire behind all of this isn't just to live longer. It's to live with clarity, to continue able to think clearly about the things that matter, to make decisions with the confidence of a mind that is present and functional, to walk independently, to recognize the people you love with that immediate familiarity that requires no effort, to remember your own moments, not as vague records that need to be reconstructed with others' help, but as vivid, accessible memories that belong completely to you, to enjoy life without constantly depending on other people for functions that were always yours. That is the real goal. And many people arrive at the advanced decades of life carrying a silent fear that is rarely said out loud. The fear of losing autonomy, memory, and identity before having exhausted everything they wanted to live. This is exactly where daily habits gain an importance that goes far beyond nutrition. Because the centenarians observed weren't exceptional people in any dramatic sense. They weren't elite athletes who never rested. They weren't ascetics who never allowed themselves a culinary pleasure. They weren't people with lives without stress or loss. They were ordinary people who made consistent choices, who never pursued perfection, who didn't follow impossible formulas or radical protocols that nobody can sustain, but who, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, put on their plates the foods that the body and brain needed to continue functioning well. Beans, olive oil, green vegetables, nuts. Nothing beyond that. Repeated with the consistency of those who understood something fundamental. The future of the mind is built in the small details of the present. Modern neuroscience reinforces exactly this. Studies on healthy aging show with growing solidity that the brain continues responding positively to adequate nutrition, regular movement, quality sleep, and cognitive stimulation even at advanced ages. The concept of neuroplasticity, the adult brain's capacity to create new connections, reorganize neural roots, and adapt to favorable conditions, has no expiration date. This means it is never too early to start, and never too late to continue. A daily walk that improves cerebral circulation and stimulates BDNF. A progressively more anti-inflammatory diet that reduces chronic neuroinflammation. Fewer ultra-processed foods that feed inflammation and destabilize blood sugar. More real nutrients that provide neural tissue with the building blocks it needs. More quality sleep that allows memory consolidation and nightly glymphatic cleaning. The brain notices all of this and responds. Not overnight, not dramatically and immediately, but in a real, progressive, and measurable way, in the same silent, consistent way that decline was being built. Healthy longevity doesn't arise from extremes. It arises from quiet consistency, from small choices made every single day over many years that gradually shape the body and brain in a different direction from the one most people choose by default. And when these choices are made with awareness, when you understand why beans, olive oil, green vegetables, and nuts appear so consistently on the plates of those who reached 100 with their minds intact, they stop being sacrifice and become investment. The most important investment you can make in the only asset nobody can take from you, your mind. The complete method is in the pinned comment. And if this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel. In the upcoming videos, I'll keep showing you what longevity research has to teach about protecting memory, preserving autonomy, and living more years with clarity, energy, and hope.